Okay, we have a lot of people that are muted, and it's okay. If you want to speak, you just press the space bar on your computer and it'll temporarily unmute you. And now let's see. Roxanne,
Yeah,
can you hear me?
yeah.
All right. Roxanne is going to welcome people into our room. We've got 13 participants right now. There'll be quite a few more joining us, I think. And everybody can control their own video and microphone muting. So I wanted to get started. I am screen sharing right now. I'm going to minimize this. This is I'm going to hit that little button right there. This is something that was created to show in Watercolor Artist magazine, Michelle's
Wow.
article. It was like a 5, 6 page article in Watercolor Artist magazine. And I got this and I thought, wow, man, Michelle has really hit the big time. But that's not really true because she's gotten so many awards and recognitions that we'd be here all night if I was going to list them all. But I wanted to put this one out there just so you could know that our featured speaker tonight is Michelle Nixon. Michelle, can you wave so everybody can see you?
Hey, I'm Michelle Nixon.
Okay, now what I wanted to do is, let's see, let me get this out of the way. And I want to go to, it's like I just got back from England, and in England they have really narrow roads and you have to drive on the left side. And it gets really confusing. And that's the way I feel tonight. Like I'm driving on the left side of the road on a really narrow road in a place I've never been. So, okay, I am going to, let's see, stop sharing. Wow, now there we go. Michelle, could you please tell us how you decided to become an artist? Here you're this young woman and you have a family of young children, and you pump out art better than more than most people I know.
Well, thank you.
So what got you into art? What made you want to do it? And what keeps you doing it even with all the other things that are tugging at you?
Um, that is a really good question, Vaughn. Um, I think everybody has their own art. I think like to say how when did I get started with art? I kind of feel like no matter who you are, there's going to be some way that connects you to like something beyond yourself that is art, something that is outside of your own like survival and your own instincts. It's like something that connects you to something greater. And it might not be painting. It might be photography or cooking or I'm not really sure, but I feel like everyone has their own art. But I guess specifically painting. I went to college, but I didn't study watercolor when I was in college. I got my undergrad in a BFA in painting and drawing at BYU and a second major in sociology. And I got my master's in sociology. But I didn't start painting watercolor until a little bit afterward. And the main reason I did watercolor was because, well, first I just started having I started having children. I started my family, and I kind of felt at the time that I was busy with grad school, with kids, with my husband was going to school, and we were working together. through it, and I thought, it's time for me to put away my paintbrushes, and focus on raising my family. That's kind of what I need to do. But then we all found out as a family that I'm more of a menace to society without the painting rather than just painting anyway. So I needed to find another outlet to paint. And so that's when I turned to watercolor, was because oil was let's say oil, it just is a little bit more toxic for pregnancy and for children, and you need more space. And so that's why I shifted to watercolor, mostly for on a need basis, and then mostly for my children. And then, but then it became such a part of my like my personal ontology and epistemology. I kind of feel like if you're a watercolor artist, that watercolor is less of an art form and more of a philosophy, a life philosophy. I know you guys know this, but I mean, if you think about it, it's so lovely, but it's so transparent, and it's so reflective of your feelings, and it's so uncontrollable. So um, you plan and you plan and you do your best to plan, because usually if you plan, things turn out much better. However, it's uncontrollable. Like, you can't control all of the things, and that's what makes it beautiful. So then once you start painting, you just have to let go and just paint and allow it to do its thing. And I think and then the fact that it's dries fast, that you can't paint over it like you can with oil, the fact that all of your brush marks and all of your um, little bits are frozen on this basically just a piece of cotton rag. It's just pigment staining cotton paper, and you're just left, because you can't paint every single molecule. You have to just go for it and choose the things that stick out the most to you, or are the most important to you, and those are the things that are frozen within your painting. And that that kind of philosophy, that kind of transparency and honesty, and um, like being okay with your mistakes, and the beauty of things being uncontrolled and things being more impressionistic, because that's more of a accurate reflection of your experience. Those are all things that really attracted me once I started getting into watercolor. And then I just kept doing it.
Thank you. Well, now, who did you learn from? You said you didn't do it when you went to college.
Right.
So, and that's what I always thought you did. I thought you learned art and took the sociology kinds of things as a sort of a minor. But where did you learn it? I mean, who taught you to do it?
Okay, that's okay. I'm so glad you said that, because I use this person all the time when I'm talking, but I we were students and we didn't have that much, but um I'd say one of my biggest influences, I have a lot of influences, but the person who started me out was someone we all know and love, Joseph Spookvich. And um, I never was able to take a workshop from him, but he published this book that is out of print. And I was looking at his stuff, and I was getting interested in watercolor. And I checked out his book from Interlibrary Loan. And it was it was such an inspiration, because, like, if you know who he is just probably the best watercolor that you will ever see. But he had this quote in his book that was probably not meant to be inspirational, but it meant so much to me, and I have it written down somewhere. Here it is. Ideally, every artist should have a studio. However, this is not always possible, and those who don't have the luxury should take heart from the fact that many wonderful paintings have been produced on the kitchen table. And that just meant so much to me. And the fact that in his book, he's so good at what he does, but he was so open with all of his techniques. Like he wasn't holding back and like gatekeeping his procedure and his skill and stuff like that. He just said, "Oh, these are things," and it felt like um, you were on the same side. Like you're all on the same side of just producing beautiful art. And the fact that he was putting all this information out there was just like putting it out in the universe, getting it back. It was just a inspiration. But reading his book was really, really, really helpful. And then honestly, just looking and doing a lot of paintings and stuff, but you could probably see some of his influence in my paintings. But he worked with another painter. He was friends with Alvaro Castagne and Herman Peckel, and they would work together. And I just thought it was really inspirational. So I mean, I sit at my, but sometimes it gets lost. So I want to make sure, like he is a huge influence of mine, and I've never actually met him, but if I would, it would be in a lot of gratitude because of just how um, kind-hearted and open he was with everything. I thought that was really cool in his book. And then from there, just a lot of working from plein air, a lot of just painting until it gets kind of to where you want it to be.
Well,
But
did you study art as a child, or did you like to draw as a child?
yes, yes. And I did have my BFA in at BYU. And even though I didn't have watercolor at BYU, I had great professors who taught me so many things about composition, about drawing, about those kind of things. Um, I think my main ones were Doug Fryer and Hagen Haltern and Wolf Barsch were some that were.
Okay, I'm going to ask anybody out there who has questions to raise their hand and let us know. There's a little button somewhere on your screen where you can raise your hand. Michelle,
And
how do we do
please,
that? Or Roxanne, Roxanne, how do we do that?
yeah, and please ask any questions because that would be much better than me just talking this whole time. Any
Yeah,
questions at all, I would really welcome that. So by all means.
okay. Uh, that's what we hope will happen is those of you who maybe have met Michelle or seen some of her work have questions about how did she arrive at the skill level that she has now and what did she do? So I'm going to hold it open here for just a second or two and ask anybody who wants to raise their hand and ask a question, or just unmute yourself, unmute your microphone, and speak out. Okay.
What years were you at BYU?
Oh, what years? It's all marked with when my children were born. Let me think about it. So my undergrad was like 2006 to like 2010. And then my graduate work, I finished up, let's see, when was Max born? 2012.
Okay. It's 12 years ago it ended. And and you've come a long way, Michelle, in a short time. Well, okay, I'm going to see if I can share my screen here. Oh, we don't want this yet. No, I don't know how to get rid of this. Let's see here. Okay, I'm going to put up some paintings. Can you all see this?
Thank you.
You should be able to see my screen. Michelle, can you see this?
Yes, it's a little.
Okay. Now this is one, I gotta confess something to you, Michelle. I was really intrigued by the way you name your paintings. They're like little cryptic little encoded messages. And so I tried to figure out why you named it what you did.
Okay, well,
Hey,
let
I'm
me
get
take
out of
a
there.
probably
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
probably way off.
Your dog. You are the worst. Oh my gosh.
Somebody needs to mute their microphone, I think. Okay. Anyway, this is called, let's see, I thought I thought I had the titles visible, but apparently not. This is called a collection of a temporary collection of humans,
A brief collection of humans.
a brief collection of humans. Okay. Now let me try, Michelle,
Okay,
because
let's.
this shows a massive city that's kind of looks like it's flowing into this, big, like gulf or something. And there's a red light above you, which means that the humans are crossing this way. The city's going that way. The humans are crossing this way. And the humans are the most colorful part of the thing, and they don't seem very interested in each other. And to me, this is a little bit like a scientist looking at microbes in a petri dish. I'm going to say something wrong. I just know it.
No, these
But anyway, that's why you named it this. That's
right.
my guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it shows human activity, but from a detached point of view.
Well, yeah, and okay. So this is a piece, it's up right now in the Salt Lake Community College campus. It's part of my solo show that's up, I think, until November something. And it was a show about, it's called after a book, The Ignorant Perfection of Ordinary People. And the show was, I'm really interested in my work about, since I have a sociology background, that might be where it's from, but exploring the social in my work, or more of the formalistic beauty of humanity. So I like to wrestle with the idea of the social aesthetic, so that like when objects, we're composing these paintings and we're putting forms and lines and color and value where we think things are interesting. And that's form. That's like not talking about the subject at all. But when these objective forms are subjective, so when they are people or something like that, it really changes the dynamic of the composition. And as human, it might not for aliens or robots, but it does for us as viewers. So the composition and the design change in just the complexity based on our shared experience of humanity. So like when you're looking at things formalistically, if this is just like a block and this is a block, it has a different kind of space between it. But if it's a person and a person, this space is charged with kind of a different emotion and feeling. Or if one is facing this way, the space feels different. And if their eyes are looking a certain way or this way, you as also a human actor can connect to these other subjective forms within a painting. So it's usually like in some way connected to humanity that creates the intent of the piece. Even my plein air work, I feel like you usually can see like a landscape and you feel like it's this isolated landscape, but no matter what, there was someone there. It was the painter, even if there's no other humans there. So there's just something about that charge it with meaning. And so I was exploring that in my work. And this one was the main piece, just to kind of show this. And what it is, it's a street in LA, and it's just the crosswalk. As soon as the stoplight hits, these is just a huge variety of a bunch of different kinds of people are just traveling and getting to where they need to go. And there's just there's so many stories within each little life passing each other. They've got things that they have to do. Some are interacting with each other, some are not. There's a person back there that's holding a protesting sign, but I chose not to put what was on the protesting sign because that would have negated the purpose of my piece and made it about those specific words or something like that. Whereas if I abstracted that, it just became about like this collection. Like you said, it's sometimes we capture little pieces of something, but it's just this tiny bit of section when they're passing right in front of you there, that you have this brief connection or this brief time to just have this complete collection of humanity. And the city is really interesting, but this piece was more about the people that make it interesting. Like the whole reason that infrastructure and cities and traffic rules exist are because of the people in front.
See, I wasn't even close.
No, yeah, you were correct. It's actually, and that's part of the reason I'm a little bit vague, is because the purpose, like since watercolor is so impressionistic and um like
Yeah, it
it's
draws from your personal experience, which
right,
varies
it's
from
just
person to
if
person.
I nailed it on the head of exactly what it was supposed to say, it would remove the work from the viewer to be able to fill in the gaps. So just like the painting is like, you get as broad brushstrokes with a little bit of details, and then you have to do the work of filling in the gaps. It kind of lets you engage more with the painting. That's kind of the point of the titles, is to kind of tell you a little bit of my intent, but let you get there kind of on your own, kind of like the image of the painting. And instead of focusing on the exact image of the painting, it's more of like the
Thank you.
impression.
Hey, Michelle, Sherry
Yes.
Mydell has a question. Sherry, go ahead.
So I was wondering if your composing of paintings has changed as you got more experience. How do you start designing a painting like this? Do you jump right into it, or do you spend some time with thumbnails, or has that changed as you've got more experienced in watercolor?
That's a very good question. Composition is huge with watercolor because you can't go back and change it. Because yeah, oils you can like sit back and kind of put things where you think they might go, and you can shift them over and stuff, but you can't do that with watercolor. So composition is a huge deal. And I'd say that's the thing. I wish people could just paint watercolor because it's so rapid. It allows you to paint so many more compositions than like the average, just like, and then when they don't work, you can throw it away. So when I'm dealing with this, yeah, I'm sketching things out and working it out. And I usually start with like my intent. I talked a little bit about this in my workshop, but you kind of start with the intent of your piece, and then you kind of build it around that. And when I say intent, what I mean is what about the painting made you want to paint it? So what I mean is, you can go anywhere to, like, say you're doing a plein air painting and you're going there and you're like, oh, what should I paint? What should I paint? I would steer away from saying, I'm going to paint that tree or that barn or that house. That instead of doing that, then you're kind of a slave to what that thing is. Instead, try to look at the patterns of light, how the so all of those things, the principles and elements of design, the color, value, shape, line, all those things, how they're working together to bring interest in your painting. And so the different things are like asymmetry, I would say contrast, things like that, to bring the point. And then where you're putting the emphasis that's governed by your intent as an artist. So someone else who would have painted the scene, it would have looked very different. But yeah, I would say a lot of practice, and I do sketches and thumbnails, and sometimes, like I just painted, I'm not going to show you because it's a negative. I had this big piece that I was excited about, and I just went right for it because I had it all worked out, and I painted it just not very long, like on Sunday or something, and I had a great time painting it, but it wasn't good. And so I had to repaint it. And it was just like different things. Like I'm like, okay, the mountain range needs to be shifted this way. And this valley, even though this is what I sound like, this needs to go here. This needs to bring your eye forward. So you need to push that back and bring this forward. And the cows were good. Like they were little individual parts that were great. But the cows were like just too in your face, and it made the whole thing about the cows. So I'm like, I need to push those back. And they've got this magic tromping around in this puddle. I'd like to just like bring about this part. So it's like, so sometimes even when you do a big piece, it's like, well, you're always learning, and you can get there. But really, really good question.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Michelle. Was it Susan? Susan, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering, like, you're going about your day and I'm imagining you're visiting LA. Are you in the middle of the street and you stop and take a photo as a reference? Or, I mean, how do you take this moment and bring it home and work on it? Because you can't be sitting there in the middle of the street painting.
Right, right. So this one is a couple of pictures, but yeah, we were literally just stopped in traffic, and so I took some pictures, and then I took a couple of like little pictures of people close and stuff like that. And there's a lot of paintings that I'll do. If I'm doing them from photographs, it will be more than one photograph, and then I'll in my sketches manipulate the photographs until they make a stronger composition. You know, like, oh, this.
So you took this from in a car?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And that's why, yeah. Otherwise, although I just got back from a trip to New York, and that one, since I was there for a little bit, I took my plein air box and I tried to find places. There was one where there was a crosswalk, but there was construction right here. So I was able to stand in the middle of the street, but just I was protected by the construction wall behind me. And so like when that was pretty fun, kind of magical to, I was protected, but I could stand in the street and paint something kind of like this.
And what does your family do while you're on a trip and you're doing things like this?
Well, that was my first big trip. So they just hung out. They just did, I guess, what they normally do, but just without me.
Thank you.
So
Okay,
this-
are there other questions? I want to move on because there's several others we want to look at that Michelle has painted.
yeah, this
So I'm
is,
gonna click to the
this
next
is-
one.
But do you have I can answer your question if you have something about that other.
yeah, it's Conrad Bowen. I had just two questions. What size is that piece? And did you mask anything or nothing?
Very good questions, both very brief. It's 12 by 16, a quarter sheet of paper, and no masking.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. Michelle, would you help me with the name of this? I can't
Yes,
see
it's
it
called A
anymore.
Means Hardly Forgotten.
Oh, a means hardly forgotten. Okay, I'm not going to tell you how I decoded this because I was so
Well,
bad on the last
No,
one.
you did great. I thought you hit on all the major points anyway. My
Oh.
piece looks like there's like a red line in it, which is just fine.
I don't know why that happens, but
That's
it
okay.
happened
Just know that
before.
the real painting doesn't have
I
that line.
must be doing something. to it.
It
Somebody
wasn't like
acc-
some cool artistic.
Somebody
thing.
accidentally annotated. So if you're the host, you can go to the annotate and remove all the annotations and those lines will disappear.
Okay.
Oh, now let's see. Okay, now go ahead.
Okay.
I'm going to, let's see, how can I do this? I'm
A
screen
means
sharing, so if I do
forgotten.
that, everybody's going to watch me.
Well, I'll just kind of talk about it. Does anybody want to take a stab at the meaning or the impression? If you want to, you can, but it's this one I did a plein air piece for the Summerfest, so the plein air competition that's in my hometown in Hyde Park and Logan. And this is I go on this trail all the time, and I just go running, and it's just such a joy, this beautiful scene. And when I did this, I knew how beautiful it was right when the light came out. And so I got up kind of early, around 5 or 5:30, and came to this spot and set up and sketched it all out so that I could, when the light just came up behind that mountain, I'd be able to kind of rapidly work into all of the light, what was happening before it got too bright. And I really like it just because it just felt really effortless, and I felt a really like I just really feel like this is one of my favorite pieces of the entire year. I've had probably other more successful ones, but it was one that it just really felt really good to paint. And let's see, so that means hardly forgotten. And that kind of has to do with something that we all know about watercolor and about life and about journeys and stuff. And sometimes, like with painting, it's like I'd say most watercolorists do it less for the product as much as the experience. The like the painting feels better than like the painting. And that's kind of what this was pointing to, just appreciating, like, as a metaphor, how painting is also how life and these moments are just like these um these things in our lives that just bring so much meaning, but it's not about getting being at the ending. It's about the means to get there that's really special. And it's kind of a gentle painting. And people kept saying like, oh, this is not something you would normally paint, like you would see and stuff. But I kind of feel like people would, because I think all you'd have to do is run on this path and you just feel so, yeah, it just inspired. Just, but I guess it is kind of more ordinary and stuff like that. But it was a really good one to paint for me. Any questions about this one, or insights to what you think it might mean besides that?
So this is Conrad Bowen. And another quick question. So did you do that in one setting? And
Mhm.
about how long you did that in one setting, the whole thing?
Yes. This one, yeah, I did in one setting. And let's see, I'd say I started sketching at 5:30, painting at around like when the sun came up is when I like was really putting it down. And there were times to like stop and let it dry and let it go, but I came back to the house like 10:30. And that for the summer, honestly, that's whoever asked about what my family usually does, that's a really great time for me. It's like 5 to 9 is usually before anybody wakes up. So that's really magic time.
I like that time myself.
Hey, can I
Um,
ask one more question before you move on to the next?
Yeah,
Please.
It's
Stacy.
Stacy. Hey, hi, Michelle.
Hi, Stacey.
Um, so with this piece, do you mind just quickly like running over your process? Because like the foreground looks like you just let it drip and it gives that like doesn't distract though. Like I don't know, you do you've got some trick. Tell us your tricks. Uh, like
Let's
like
see.
what how many layers do you, because you obviously laid down like the overall composition and everything and what you were looking at, and then you let that dry, or you know what I mean? Like I'm just
Yes,
wondering.
let me go ahead. No, I completely understand. Let me tell you. So something that's good to know are if the object is darker, you don't have to skip around it. Like the trees, I don't have to be careful
Right.
about coming around them and stuff. I can put some soft stuff at the beginning.
Sure.
But
Okay.
this is basically what I do. First, I paint the light, then I paint the shadows. So
Yeah.
that's what it's
Like opposite of oil.
Yes, opposite of oil. Yes. So first is like encompassing how the light, like the temperature and like the feeling of like the atmosphere of the light, like the
Yeah.
quality of it, and how it changes depending on like where it is. And then you come back and you define the light by putting in shadows. And then
Yeah.
sometimes I'll like if it's a thing, then I'll come back and add more shadows or bring out depth, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
not actually sure how many layers I put on the bottom, but I do kind of like to leave my foreground relatively loose because its
Mhm.
sole purpose is to like get you to the painting, but not to like act as a barrier. So it's like the value, and then you kind
Yeah.
of can work with a little bit of abstraction sometimes. And I think that's a really good thing to put into your work too. Like as much abstraction with little places that you can sink your teeth into, but like so yeah, the foreground is one I usually leave a little bit more abstracted and use as a way to invite people into the painting without distracting them.
So beautiful. Thank you.
You, Stacy, good question.
Okay, let's go to the next one.
Okay.
Okay, this is, I think you call this in front of a painting.
Yes.
So I'm really fascinated with this one, Michelle, because I couldn't stop looking at it the first time I saw it. Because it really, it touches me in a way, with this mom and this baby. This is you and your son, isn't it?
It is. It is. Thank you. I'm so glad it means something to you.
Well, I what gave you the idea for this, and how long did it take you to do it? This is just one try, or did you do several of this?
This one, so was not, this one is in my studio, and I painted it. I didn't paint it for a show or anything like that. I painted it because it's a little bit smaller too. It's not 12 by 16, it's a little bit smaller. And it was just at the beginning of the year, I was just working through my feelings on motherhood and art and creativity. And I was just working through these things. And so I painted it for myself, just to remind myself of things. Which you're probably going to want me to tell you about the things that I was thinking about. So formalistically, it is me, but it's just a mother holding her child, and you can tell, like the mother in this painting is really appreciating this moment, and but the son is just really just overcome with just kind of this feeling, and but it is in it, and that's where the most detail is in the composition, is the connection. The little bits of connection are like the things where your eye goes to first, because it has the highest degree of contrast and the highest degree of detail. But you can see behind, there's just this brief little outline, and it almost looks like maybe it's a doorway or something, but if you see the little tick kind of at the back of the baby, you can tell it's just like a piece of art that's hanging on the wall, which is a painting. And so it's kind of just asking questions about, like, is that the art, or is this moment the art? Or when you have time to paint, like which is most important, and things like let's see. The act of creating is a really rich experience, and sometimes you can think about like interruptions or distractions, but if you focused on that, then and like, oh no, I don't have any time to paint, I've got all of this life happening all the time. If you didn't have all of that and you had all the time to be painting, you wouldn't have anything to paint. I guess that's what I was going for. It was these moments aren't really interruptions, they're inspirations. So, and for me, I feel like life isn't really something that happens in between painting sessions. It's just the wellspring of which all creativity flows is life. And it's okay that it's messy, and it's okay that it's distracting, because that is the subject of art. Art itself shouldn't be what your life is about, right? It shouldn't be like life is about art, but maybe art should be about life, you know. Art should should be about life. So
I think I got that one right, Michelle.
There we go.
I was thinking
Good.
of in front of a painting, meaning whatever's in front of the painting is the painting.
Right.
So this mom and this child having a moment together comes first.
Right. But it's funny too, because I painted this painting of a paint, so I did eventually get to capture this painting. So, I mean, if I painted this, like I could paint this painting in the background of another painting, but I was
Yeah.
able to paint this too, because it's a physical painting.
Who else would like to comment on or chat with Michelle about this piece of work?
Let me ask a question. Since this is essentially a self-portrait, did you have someone take a photo and did you work from the photo, or how did you know
Right.
what the baby
That's
looked
a
like?
Oh, you're busted, Michelle.
No, yeah. So this one was a couple, because my older son was like talking about stuff, and he was asking about how to use my camera for reflections in his school. And I'm like, I was telling him, and then he had come back, and then he was just using it, and he's like just taking pictures. And so I had just a bunch of random pictures of me holding moss, because I was talking to my son at the same time. And so it was my son who took this picture, my other son. So yeah. And it's
Any other
mostly
questions for Michelle?
This is Roxanne. How detailed do you draw out your before you start painting? Like, for
I
example, how long would you have sketched this out before you actually put brush to it?
okay. It varies depending on like sometimes I just really want to get into it, but I usually sketch. I'm not really sure. Like some things you can kind of the human form, sometimes I'll just take a little bit more concern making things are in the right proportion. But as far as like, so it takes time, but not as much pencil marks, because the pencil marks you have to be very light with, so that they're just to guide you. I don't mind seeing pencil marks in my work. I think they, especially in my, I don't know, I just like that process. But if they're distracting, I don't like that when they're distracting. So they are a guide for you. And so I will work really light, really, really light. And I start painting when I feel good about starting painting. So sometimes it takes a long time. So I can't remember for this specific one how long I stood sketching. But I know like the things that I pay particular attention with doing figures are making sure that the face proportions are correct, hands and like the body, like how they fit together. Because something that you all know with watercolor too is that because it's so transparent, you can't disguise a bad drawing with more paint. Like so like drawing skills, the more you develop those, even if you're not painting on top of it, the better it's going to be for your work.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So was the sunlight like this in the photo, or did you create that in the painting?
A little bit of both. My husband saw like the photo I was working from. He's like, "Whoa, why are you painting that? That's such a bad picture of you." Because it was just like I knew what I was painting in my head, but he's like, "Whoa, why are you painting this? It looked a little bit different than what he thought." And he's like, "Oh, okay," after it was done. But yeah, mostly like it was really strong lighting. And so yeah, a little bit of both. A little bit of both. But you can see like, for example, there's a little bit of light at the top of the painting too, and on the knee. And if you cover that up, you can see that the painting would kind of, it's just enough to kind of like bring the painting all the way around. If I had like the little thing on the knee and the light spot up the top not there, it wouldn't have, it would have been a little bit too boring, I guess, on that side, and not enough visual interest that just kind of holds you enough over there that brings you back in. And then just like a couple of things here and there, and like the warmth coming from like when my hand's touching his arm, like to bring that reflected warmth and stuff like that. So a little bit of both.
Okay, we need to move on so we can see some more of Michelle's work. We can come back and we can recycle some of these questions if you have more, but let's move on to the next one. Now, Michelle, I do want to share with you my decoding of this one. This is called, let's see, then it's wait till that thing goes away. This is called, it's everything depends on an
So much
ice cream
depends.
cone by a
Yes.
vegetable stand. So I looked at this and I thought, why in the world would she name it that? But I figured it out this afternoon.
Yes.
Okay, the secret is right here. There's this, she looks like a pregnant mom. Is that what you had in mind?
Uh-huh.
And this little guy's got his legs, his arms wrapped around mom's leg, watching this guy wolf down an ice cream cone. And it probably was from actual experience, but that title is what's going through this boy's head. How close was I?
Pretty dark. And you know what? The title of this one actually comes from a pretty well-known poem. I'm sure if you guys know poetry, I don't know that much poetry. I do love poetry, but I'm not very good at knowing it. But it's called The Red Wheelbarrow. Has anybody heard that poem?
Williams,
Yes.
Carlos Williams.
Yes, yes. That's it. So that's where the title kind of comes from. And I have the poem here just in case. It says, "So much depends on a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens." And so this one was kind of an homage to that. So this was "So much depends on a ice cream cone by a vegetable stand." Over on the left side is this was done in plein air for the Midway 2003. So last year's Midway competition, the plein air competition that they do. And this one, I can't remember which place it got in the main competition, but it was just I could have put the words of the store down, but I just felt it was like sometimes I will spend time in making sure the words are there, but I just put like a hint of what the words could be. And if you know this spot, you knew it. But and then it's the Heber like cheese factory, and they sell ice cream right out of their store, and then set up on the side is just their vegetable stand. The family comes and does their vegetable stand, and it was just really nice to come and sit and just see people coming in and interacting, and yeah, I don't know, it was just really nice. And I was lucky that I won an award, but yeah,
Other comments?
it wasn't even my favorite painting I did for Midway that year. In fact, if I'm completely honest, I was getting there and it was going great, but then there was a lot more like some parts were not like smoothly going because of the wind and like the sun and stuff. So I was actually grateful to finish painting this painting and moving on from it. So I was so happy that it won an award, but it was pretty.
Well, okay, I want to know more about this gal with the little boy hugging her leg. Is that you?
No. I honestly just kept on what I do when there's a lot of figures in my paintings and it's a plein air piece. What I'll do is instead of like trying to paint them all in, because with watercolor, you can't just like add people in very well unless you have like them planned. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll take some time and sketch out some like figures as they move and kind of have them there. And so that's what in my sketchbook I'll have like a couple of different figures and I can choose and like put them in where I think they need to be put in. But no, there's just his mom and she was just coming to eat some ice cream too, because
It's really cute. And I really like my decoded
yeah.
painting. I sympathize with that kid. He's watching this guy wolf down an ice cream cone and he's got nothing but mama to hanging on to.
Yeah, but she's about to go in and get him one because she's heading
She's
there.
figuring out, she's checking her coin purse or something there. He's gonna get him one. Well, okay, let's move on to the next one. We're almost off the clock here. Now, Michelle, I'm not even gonna try on this one. I gave up. This is the cafe at the Grand Resort.
Yes. Okay, this one I did for the plein air competition in Driggs, Idaho this year. And this one has a fun story behind it because this was actually like my favorite piece that I painted up in Driggs, Idaho. It wasn't like my best, but it was definitely my favorite. And they give you all the artists, they give a pass to go to the top of the Grand Targhee Resort to paint these beautiful Tetons in this like massive, beautiful view. And I was up there all day with other artists and we were having a great time. And I painted this really grand view of the Tetons. And it was such a wonderful experience to be a part of. And then I was in on the ski lift going down and I was looking at my painting and my painting was not good at all. It was just like, you know what? It just was one of those that fell flat. The experience was good, but I don't know, the composition wasn't great and some things were just not as they should be. And it didn't really bother me at all because I mean, I had a wonderful time and I captured some of the feelings that I was trying to feel. But I was really hot. So I went into this cafe and I was drinking water. And then that's when it all kind of like the light and all of these things just worked together. And so I didn't have an extra paper with me. So I just turned the Teton picture over and I painted this on the back side of it. And then this is what came of it. And it was really fun. And it was a lot more successful, even though it's a lot more ordinary of a scene. The lights and the composition was just better. So, and it was really fun because I was painting the person who was working, who's like the biggest figure in there. He was so aware of me the whole time I was painting, and he was so polite and like so like he just kind of was like side-eyeing me the whole time. And so when I was done, I came and showed him, and he was so excited to see that he was in a piece of artwork. So that's the fun story behind this piece.
Did this one win an award in that competition?
Well, that they do awards a little bit differently there. You can paint all week and you just put them up and have them sell, but you can only choose two to put in the competition to be judged. And I didn't choose this one to be put in. I chose two different ones that were a little bit more like grand and la-di-da, but because it was kind of small, because the one painting was like this big and then I had to turn it over and it had the stamp from Driggs, so I had to shorten it a little bit. But so I didn't choose to put it into the competition, but I did put it up for sale and someone bought it and they liked the story behind it after they bought it. I told them the funny story. But I said, it's not worth looking at the painting behind it. It's not that good. And they're like, okay.
Comments or questions for Michelle about this painting?
I have a question.
Okay.
So the people in the painting look kind of drippy, and obviously the like your paint in there. Did you add them at the very end? Was this is also your process where you put in the lights first and then you add in the darks? You add in them very last?
No, the people I sketch in where I think the people should go at the beginning.
Okay.
Because then I usually have a rough idea of where the darks will go and where the things will go and stuff. So the person who's working, he was kind of all over the place. But I actually started with the person sitting there. He was just sitting there waiting for his family to show up, and he kept on looking up every time someone would come in and out, and then people would come in and order ice cream, and that's I swear all anybody ordered at this little cafe was the ice cream that day. But yeah, this lady came in but yeah, usually that's when I sketch out on another place like the different possible people configurations, and sometimes I'll ad lib a little bit, but it's usually at the beginning when I'll sketch the people. But I kind of like to incorporate them into it. So while I'm putting in the shadows, I just kind of touch in the warmth and the stuff, because sometimes I kind of like it when it just runs and kind of creates the ambiance rather than like a specific person.
And did you, with the chair legs, did you just drip those in? Just because all look dripped in, like some of them look dripped in.
Yeah, with those, I just used a lighter wash. I started with like a strong wash, and then I just kind of connected it with water and
Uh-huh.
kind of like put it down. And I didn't want to make them a specific chair. I just wanted it to like speak chair language, so to speak, like give the impression of like it's not like a this is a chair. It's like this speaks chair.
Oh, were you able to charge double because you had a painting on the front and the back?
No. Well, I told you the painting on the back. Actually, a lot of my paintings have paintings on the back. If I didn't like it at the time, but no, I didn't charge double.
Well, we're getting pretty close to the end of our chat and query, and it's time for anyone else who has a question or comment for Michelle. This would be a time to do it. So, who wants to ask a question?
And we can go back to any of the paintings you want to look at if you have a specific question about a painting.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Your favorite subject to paint, what is it and why?
Oh, that's a good question. I think probably just light doing interesting things and human interactions, maybe. Yeah, I usually like a human element, but I usually like it if the light is doing something interesting. And I think sometimes it's so I have this thing sometimes I say that is like because watercolor is so impressionistic, you have to plan so much and you research the things that are the most interested in you. Like you were asking, like, oh, how did you get this dripping effect? And you think about things that affect you and you think about it and you study and you make sketches. And then because it's so impressionistic and honest, then when your brush hits the paper, you have to let go and you just have to paint and be happy that you are painting. Because if you start getting encumbered with like, oh no, it's not going exactly how I want, it will be reflected in your painting because it's so impressionistic. So you have to like, even if you put the brush stroke in the wrong place, you have to say, that's okay. It's a beautiful brush stroke. And you have to like keep yourself in this space that is just grateful that you got the chance to paint it all. And you just go, you can't be self-critical. You can't get down on yourself. You just keep going until the painting is all done. And that's when you can start being self-critical. So after your painting is done, you just enjoyed the experience and it was lovely. Then you can sit back and say, okay, what would I do differently here? What would I change? What worked? What didn't? And that's when you can be self-critical. And what that leads to is more research. And where it guides you, like the direction I go to are the things that usually meant the most to me, that I would study them and then I would execute them. But the things that bothered me are the things that like meant the most to me. And so that's how is one way that you can develop your style. You paint, you self-reflect, you research, and then you paint again. And then it'll kind of guide you to the things that you like to paint the most. But it takes critical eye of like, why do I want to paint this? How can I get this to be how I want it? And then it kind of just, so for me, it is like things like light, looseness, mostly, I guess I kind of like painting impressions, maybe. Like another poem that's kind of famous, it was this, you guys know it better. It's like a famous painting about ponies. He has this whole thing about how these dappled ponies in the meadow, and if he stepped out of his body, he'd burst into blossom. And when I read it, I finally realized that the whole poem was about ponies, but it wasn't about ponies. Like it was like he used the poem and the imagery of these ponies to express what was inside of him. And it was just a poem about being unadulteratingly happy. And he used those to show that feeling. And I think if I could choose one thing, it would be like just using the things that I'm seeing and generating like this impression of the things that I am thinking about and concepts I'm dealing with, to like, but just using them as a medium, like watercolors a medium, but like the actual people and the ponies, or never actually painted a pony, but if that makes sense. So yeah, impressions, light, people, connections, the things that guide me to look back and keep painting. So that was a long description.
Michelle,
Yes,
can you hear me?
I can hear you great.
Oh, good.
Yes.
When you paint, do you always go from light to dark? Like it's so misty down here on the chair legs and everything? Or do you ever go back in and lift things out? And-
Generally, I don't lift things out
Okay,
unless it's wet.
okay. Yeah,
Sorry.
sitting here going, how in the world did she do that?
Oh.
Because I'm always so hard edged and bright. And I'm looking at this, it's so cool.
Well,
But,
thank you.
Yeah, how do you do that?
I generally don't like, I don't usually scrub out things very well. But if it's wet, I can still lift pigment out, and I will do that. I'll like take a cleaner brush and like lift things out and stuff. But it's kind of like a dance to where if it's wet, it can move, but once it's frozen, it's hard to move things around without it looking a little bit harried.
Yeah. You see some people that lift out intentionally
Yeah.
part of their process, and I'm like, this doesn't look like that. And it's so easy to just really ruin your paper.
Yeah, and you know, some
like-
people are really good at that though. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just not my thing.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. And I do like to remove pigment while it's wet though. But yeah, for some reason I can't. I'm not very good at like scrubbing the paper once it's dry.
Yeah.
You can't, because it like, I love the paper so much. It's just such beautiful texture. And
You do it right the first time, then you don't have to lift out.
well, sometimes you don't, then you just turn around and paint it on the back, right?
Yeah, right.
You don't do it right.
Another question I keep asking, but I came in late, so I looked
Good.
them all up.
Long
Um,
question.
But you leave a lot of white space in your paintings, it looks like to me. And you don't cover, do you not cover that white with anything at all? Or do you just do like the faintest wash? Or I'm on your website. I'm not gonna lie. I'm looking,
Okay.
and I'm looking at, a lot of other paintings, A Path of Reluctant Kings, Hello, Happy World. I mean, there's a lot of white space in your paintings. So I'm just curious about that and how much, like you leave that white space. And then I have another question after that about research. You said research. So I want to know what that actually means.
Okay. So white space, this is where it's kind of a bummer online versus in person, because in person, they're really, it just doesn't pick up with the scanner. I do like to have high value, but a lot of the paintings, like the sky that's really light and stuff, it's like 3 or 4 really subtle washes, and it's not even a specific color of like, oh, a blue sky. I call it like sky color, and it's just like moving it a little bit, just very subtly with a gradient from darkness to lighter, and it needs to be warmed up. Sometimes I'll put a glaze of pink to push things back, but it's really yeah, I wish I could show you like it's just really subtle, but there's like, it's in person, like if you have a bunch of these nice layers, one on top of on the other one, you can see it in person, but it's like really light. And I think with sky too, sometimes people go too dark too fast, and so like if it's like the window and the light and stuff, then it is like this. Like this one, I don't think it has many layers, but it has like a couple in just the light opening from the windows. I'll see yellows and stuff, but yeah, if that answers your question, it is light. It's like a very high light value consistency, but like the washes themselves are just really subtle.
Yeah. I can see that in one of them that it's like in the Hello, Happy World. I can see that it's like kind of a peachy wash. There's like a really subtle peachy wash.
Yeah, it's just scanning it. Sometimes they just don't pick up the same kind of things that you can see in person.
For
But
sure.
it's okay.
I know we're over
Oh,
time. So to answer my recent question, maybe I'll just have to email you.
well, if anybody needs to go, you can go. Is that okay, Vaughn, if I keep answering questions?
Oh, yeah,
'Cause I-
yeah, we can go ahead. There's been a lot of questions from Michelle, so the 60 minutes isn't an absolute limit. We can go ahead a little longer.
Yes. So I'm going to answer your question about research. It's probably from my sociology grades. It's gathering the data. It's like let's see what information. So it's like sketchbook stuff or looking at paintings and stuff. Let me see. So this is just filled with sketches that I could just do while I'm sitting, looking, but then it's also filled with notes about different things. Let's see, let me try to find a really note heavy. And sometimes they're great sketches and sometimes they're not. Like here's some people, but then here's some really crappy pictures of some cows. I was just getting let's see if I can find some better notes in my, so this is just, let's see. Okay, so here, so these are just notes on, because I was really interested in water reflections. And so I just wrote, okay, what do I do when, like, okay, I don't know. Let me see what I have written. If the bank meets where the reflection is light or white, a soft background using gravity that meets at the surface, the edge of the bank should mimic the edge of the landmass, which is just, it doesn't sound like much, but to me, it was just really informed. And it's just little notes where I'm like very deliberately trying to understand the things that interest me. Or you can, data gathering could be researching painters that you really admire. Maybe it's like, okay, I'm going to try to understand trees for a little bit and the anatomy of a tree and what that looks like and how I should put that. Or you could be like, wow, this specific artist is someone who captures something and I can't put my finger on the name of what I'm trying to figure out what this essence is. And then if you go through the effort of really trying to dig into it and trying to say, okay, this is how they do it. Or sometimes you've probably noticed doing watercolor, there's lovely happy accidents that happen. Research could be like, okay, self-reflection, that happened, it was a happy accident. And then research is like, how can I reproduce that? How can I use that the next time I paint? And then you could practice until you know like how to control a bloom to where you want it to go, or things like that. Does that answer your question about like research-ish?
Yeah, it sounds like research is a combination of trying to figure out the object, like how to paint the object or the scene that you're painting, combined with your own personal observations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or like taking classes or workshops or learning new techniques. It's just like whatever, it's just right before, because all of the techniques you're learning and stuff, when you start painting, you can't like think of every single thing that you had just learned. You just kind of have to hope it absorbs.
Yeah, that's
And then you go for it and be like, okay, some of that absorbed, some of it didn't. What didn't? This didn't. How do I fix that next time?
yeah. And the interesting thing is talk about this whole self-reflection thing and figuring out like what am I observing? What do I like to see? I paint in plein air sometimes, but I get too anxious about the finished product. So I don't really do it other than just like in a sketchbook. So what would you tell somebody who has that problem?
I don't know. You don't have to show anybody.
Yeah. Okay.
Just do it for your if you want. And
Better you get.
sometimes like I would love to plein air paint. Yeah. It'd be good to be
Any
able to plein
final
air paint.
comments
Anytime.
So it's
Zoom.
Conrad Bowen. I have a question. So I understand the immediacy of watercolor and the convenience of doing that. I reflect back when I was attending Utah State, one of the artists that came and visited was Bernie Fuchs. and he painted in oil, and he painted in oil like it was watercolors. And he had paint running all over, and it just was really pretty fluid. So I again understand you have young kids, etc. Have you ever had any feelings in terms of wanting to paint with oils or acrylics or other mediums? And just because of the immediacy of life, you continue to do it in watercolor.
I haven't yet. I haven't been like, oh, I really want to go do oil again, because I just have been really, really enjoying watercolor. It's so challenging, but it's kind of fun to lean into the challenge. And I am starting to experiment with gouache because it can be incorporated into watercolor. I
Yeah.
haven't had anything that's like something I can put up yet, but just trying to learn the techniques of gouache has been really, really fun. But honestly, I don't know. I feel like watercolor is a little bit underrepresented. And so the fact that I've been doing it and it's meant so much to me in my life, I'm like, you know what? It's been really fun to get behind it and just kind of see where it goes. So I don't really see it changing anytime soon, but I wouldn't be opposed to painting in oil again. I just
Yeah.
haven't in a while. That's what I used to paint, is oil portraiture in college. But
Right. Great stuff.
well, thank you. Any other questions about those kind of things?
I wish I could have a long conversation with you, but thank you very much.
Me too. I love talking shop with art. It's so
Yeah.
great.
Michelle, this has been great, and the
Thank you.
discussion has been very good. A lot of interesting questions and knowledgeable artists who have joined us. Thank you so much
Really
for
appreciate it.
being part of this. And this is the fourth one we've done this year. And I think I wanted to save this for the end of the year when people could dial in.
Thank you. That's
So
nice of you to say.
we may come back and bug you again in the future sometime,
love it.
Michelle.
I love it.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. I'm going to stop recording if I can find the right button. And thanks everybody for dialing in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Much.